Jag ska snacka om
I'm going to tell you about the situation in Norway with regard to legislation, since what's happened since Reykjavik 2015. Let me start off by presenting the new Creative Works Act in Norway. And so a bill was submitted and it was supposed to be adopted before the summer. However, that is not the case because we still have the old act from 1961 that's in force. Now, let's take a look at just generally then the revision or the amendment of the bill, of the act. And there are 4 parts to this. 3 have with regard to licensing and collective licensing. And the first one that came into effect in the summer of 2015. Now we come to the 4th part, which is the main amendment going through the whole act, basically. This has been a very extensive work and is based on work that's a bill that was submitted in 2016. We have many different meetings and hearings with many different interested parties, 900 pages of responses from different organizations and interested parties, and the proposal is to have a completely new act. Now, the aims is to modernize and to clarify and to simplify the act, to make it more easily available for all people who need to use it. And in the bill, we see that we need structural, linguistic and material amendments to be made. Linguistic changes are basically to modernize and to simplify the language used in the Act. So terms and individual words have been replaced, and we've taken rights holder, so we've changed the word there in the Norwegian to modernize it. And then we also looked at the structure. We've changed the provisions and the chapters within the provisions within each chapter, organized in a clearer way. And we have different chapters are moved to be in close proximity to each other, those that sort of belong together. And there are also contents changes because of the new technology and the different principles that are included here. Now, many also, the idea is to basically to reinforce the position of rights holders in the different agreements. Let me go through the most central core proposals. So, to start with, a provision has been proposed with regard to the background to this. This is a provision which is going to be pedagogical in nature to make this act more easily accessible and understandable. And then there's also the original works requirement that's been included as well, to make this clearer as compared to the act that's in force at the moment. And then transmission has also been introduced as a new subcategory. And transmission to the general public, communication to the public, according to the Directive, Chapter 3. And to make this easier to transfer EU language into Norwegian legislation. And a new rule is also being proposed against streaming of creative works that have been made available illegally. And the technology that is being used for this is not the decisive aspect here for there to be a ban. And the conditions to decide on this are very strict. And it must be obvious that it has been transmitted illegally, and that the purpose is to hurt and to damage the interests and the rights of the rights holder substantially. And the idea is not that the changes there to how the users are regarded as well. And then there's also a new provision with regard to collective licensing for clearance, the rights for audiovisual contents, because we need more technological neutral provisions here. So the clearance of rights must be the main aspect here.
I paragraf 67.
Paragraph 67, there's an enactment of the speciality principle. This provision states that an infringement of copyright shall not be regarded to have been infringed if there's an extensive proof of this.
Har den opprinnelige rettighetshaveren etter forslaget et ufravikelig krav på rimelig vederlag fra erververen.
There's also a requirement of the right of compensation, and the focus is on the position of the rights holder in this case. Other principles that hadn't been enshrined in law on the right of access to work is the so-called employer provision, which has been now confirmed in paragraph 71. This provision means that rights in lack of an agreement is considered to have been transferred to the employer to the extent to which there's an assumption that the creation of such work is taking place and that it's reasonable for working conditions to achieve their purpose. This provision has also been proposed to be used under contractual circumstances. There are also a number of proposals for changes to the penalties and sanctions. There's been a removal of some provisions of negligence and the addition of some other elements. In addition, the sanctions have been extended to fines or prison up to 1 year. The compensation rules have also seen proposals for changes to strengthen the right holders' entitlements to compensation, with an emphasis on ensuring that provisions to a greater extent than usual are taking into account the right of compensation. The rights holders are entitled to receive compensation after an assessment with 3 different options, with a focus on the largest amount. This was sent to Stortinget, the Parliament, after inquiry, and then the debate broke out in earnest in media. You see Roar Hagen's drawing in Verdens Gang newspaper with a comment to this debate, and the person with a bloody knife is supposed to be the Minister of Culture. The artists' associations and societies mobilized against paragraph 71 on the transfer to the employer provision. They said that it went further than the existing provisions, and they were negative to enshrining this in law. After communications with the ministry, the Parliament decided they didn't want to proceed with that provision. There were also criticisms of other provisions and proposals that rights holders were unhappy with. So various components were not then included in the proposal. It is normal to see such changes being made during a referral process, but some of it could be considered a surprise. But at the end of May, they decided to refer the entire processing till the autumn. It was so complex, and that they felt they needed more time. So what's happening now? Well, at the moment, the process is uncertain. One complicating factor is that we've parliamentary elections next week in Norway. And the signals from the parliamentary committee as to the time frame of these provisions and the employer provision is something that will have to be up to the new committee and the new parliament. So everything is still pending. You can envisage several different scenarios. The committee can choose to resume the work during the autumn, possibly at a later stage either. It can be retransmitted back to the government, referred, And if there's a shift in government, a new government may choose to table a new bill, a new proposal, an amendment bill, or rather the entire thing might be shelved pending initiatives from the EU. The only thing which is certain is that we have an exciting time ahead of us. Let's just hope the results will be here for the next symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you.